Oh yeah!
Hello and welcome to this edition of Fish Stripes Live. We are here today to preview the series between the Miami Marlins and the division rival, the Atlanta Braves. This is a very special episode. Before we go to our guests, let me introduce everyone to our panelists, the usual suspects here tonight. We have Eli Sussman, who will control everything in the back. We have Noah Berger, Adam Agbani. We are sure to be joined by other members of Fish Stripes later on. And tonight, our special guest from Céspedes Family Barbecue. This is probably our biggest guest so far. This is awesome. I'm the biggest fan. I can't wait. Jordan Shusterman. Jordan, it is so great to have you on.
Wow. Hope you can find a bigger guest than me at some point, but I really appreciate it. This is super, super fun. I'm glad that this came from me just randomly tweeting about the Marlins, and you guys do an awesome job of covering a team that obviously doesn't get a ton of national love. So I'm very fortunate as part of my job to cover all 30 teams, and I take a special interest in teams that are not necessarily getting talked about as much. So I'm excited to do this.
Yeah. Starting off, I wanted to get kind of like a word association. When I say the word Marlins, maybe what's the first thing that comes to your mind, or the first thing that really pops into your head? Who stands out to you?
Man, that's a good question. It's been an interesting decade, and I think I can kind of speak. I don't know all of your ages, right? But like the Marlins to a generation older than us, like they very vividly remember. And I'm sure I'm curious about your guys' memories of the Marlins winning, right? When they used to win a couple times, right? They won games like late in the season, like they play like in October and stuff. I know it's been a while. Like that doesn't obviously resonate to me in the same kind of way. Sure, I may remember that as a kid, but so now I've just been, when I think Marlins, I think one of the most challenging, some of it self-inflicted and some of it just bizarre context of any of the major league markets, and how they've gone about trying to make the best out of that situation has been really interesting to watch. And obviously I can imagine super frustrating for fans of the team over the last 5 to 7 years besides the 2020 party, which maybe we'll get to that, but I guess I shouldn't act like that didn't happen. But in general, it's obviously been a frustrating little stretch here for the old Marlins.
Yeah, and a lot of stuff has happened, but some bad, but also some good also from this season. The Marlins also look to have probably the favorite for the NL Cy Young, Sandy Alcantara.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan, when you watch Sandy, do you see the 2022 Cy Young?
I do for two reasons. One is that he's been the best pitcher, so that helps when you're trying to win the Cy Young. He's been the best pitcher. He's pitched the most. He's done the most pitching. I think you guys know Foolish Baseball. I love that he has kind of talked about how just like getting outs, right? Like who has recorded the most outs, right? And this is something that Sandy has done to an incredible degree, and obviously in an age when pitchers are getting pulled in the 5th and 6th inning with regularity. It's been so cool to see him be the guy to just go deep into starts. The other reason is that if you go back and look at our predictions on Fox Sports, I picked Sandy to win the Cy Young as my one spicy awards prediction. And so we all like being right. That's fun. So that would be cool. I would enjoy being correct about a baseball prediction, because we don't get that opportunity very often. It's hard to predict this stupid sport.
With that, just also the Marlins have not been really that great in terms of hitting, especially when you look at this month, going almost down and down on base percentage. batting average almost in every month, despite big free agent acquisitions. For the panels here, Jordan, and everyone here, just what do you think may be going wrong with the Marlins in terms of hitting, and is there a way for them to bounce back because they always have the best pitching prospects, have a really great rotation, and when it comes to hitting, it's almost like they're the exact opposite.
Yeah, and that's what my mini Twitter thread was that kind of started this conversation, a week or so ago. And I mean, I've kind of had this thought for a while now, and I think this has been, it's not just me. Like people have written about this, and you guys know it as well as anybody. But it is pretty stunning. Now they did seem to make efforts, right? Like it seemed like coming into the season, they also looked at their team and said, we need hitters, right? Yeah. And it's just that the ones they identified have not been good at all. Now, there's a few reasons for that, right? Because first of all, you probably bought exceptionally high on one Jacob Stallings. That one, coming out from under you, you can't be shocked by that, right? And then you're buying the upside in Garcia and Soler, where those are just approaches that just get exploited. And sometimes they have. I mean, Soler, you don't have to go back. Like, Garcia is the one I'm most disappointed in because I've liked him for a long time, but. Soler, you just look at his last 3 years, right? He had a 50 homer season or almost, and then he was terrible, and then he was World Series MVP. And so, you knew that was going to be kind of a roller coaster ride. And so you can't be shocked when that one isn't exactly carrying and being a consistent contributor. And then guys like Joey Wendell, it's like, what's really his track record of really being that good of an above average hitter for that long? And I think he's a good player and obviously a good defender. But I mean, to me, it's just as much about where are the young guys, right? Besides Jazz, who they traded for, who is coming to help? I don't need to remind you guys of Lewis Brinson, and I know some of the younger guys like Sanchez and Diaz have had these moments, but man, it's I guess Nick Fortes has been the one guy this year where you're like, wait, he's actually a better hitter than we thought. Yeah, and that's what's really frustrating. And I think the ballpark is still a big part of it. I know they've moved the fences in, I think a couple times now, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. But look, that's not the whole thing. I mean, this is just not an impressive collection of hitters. And then really it's the most frustrating thing is where is that going to come from and how is that going to change? Because, I just watched, I'm a Mariners fan. I just watched 3 games with the Tigers. That was bleak, right? Like that was bad. Like that's even worse than the Marlins. If there is a lineup worse than the Marlins right now, it is definitely Detroit. But they have a Riley Green in there, right? I mean, I know Torque has struggled, but they have a guy like him that you hopefully have that promise. And that's where I'm worried, right? Like besides Jazz, I'm not sure who's under 26, 27 in this offensive core that I'm like, know for sure is going to be a regular starter. And then I'd really love to hear from you guys, like who you guys think that is of this group that you guys feel better about maybe than others.
Yeah, first let me just address this in the comments from Marv, because they saw Jazz on Twitter saying, I want to play, and everybody's like anxious to see him back. But the reason why we haven't talked about Jazz much on the show at all in the last couple of months, just because it seems like a foregone conclusion that they're just going to shut him down for the year with this stress fracture in his back. So just to answer the question, they are going to reevaluate him in the next few days in the coming week. And if they could give him the green light to do baseball activities, and then you play it out a few weeks, and maybe he gets back for the very end of September and that final homestand in October. But it's going to be a small taste of that. And naturally, that's what a lot of people are clamoring for what we just mentioned, because he's the one youngish guy who's under long-term control, who you're very convinced is at least an above average regular, if not even much more than that. And for what he showed this year, it was such a tease because it was even better than last year. It was such a significant step forward in his consistency. Even his defense he was just an amazing all-around player. Like we were having conversations about him as maybe the best second baseman in baseball. And now it turns out, I mean, it was 60 games. It was, even in the best case scenario, we're going to get less than half a season of that. So that's just been, in hindsight, I think that so many people have even tuned out almost because he's not even in the picture. He is that kind of singular, powerful force in this really community that if he comes back, I think that alone makes a big difference to the morale that everybody's feeling down here if he does come back.
Yeah. Noah, you were going to say something?
I was gonna say what Jordan said on Twitter, and what the Marlins communications gave us as the update is that he's gonna be further evaluated. But personally, I don't think there's any reason to rush him back. There's let him rehab. I know he wants to play. Of course he wants to play. He's a baseball player. He needs to take the time, and fractures in vertebrae are not fun, and they're not easily healed. So that takes time. So he's gonna have to take the time. He's doing that right now. I don't think we see him for the rest of the season. He has come down to see a few games. I've seen him in the dugout. I've seen him in the clubhouse a little bit.
What color is his hair these days?
It changes on the daily, so I couldn't tell you. But yeah, that was a huge blow when he went down, because pretty much the heart and soul of the team. I wouldn't say the heart and soul of the team, but like pretty much like the Energizer Bunny of the team went down.
Yeah. Brian De La Cruz is the heart and soul of the team.
Boy.
You guys mentioned young players like Jazz, and the Marlins have been doing that as of late. They are bringing up young players. JJ Bleday, Charles LeBlanc. We have Jordan's favorite player of all time, Payne Burdick, #1 fan right here. The Marlins are doing that. Jordan, when you see the Marlins bringing up this young players, what do you think maybe that tells you about the franchise and how willing they are just to bring up young players and test them out and try them out and actually give them some MLB playing time?
Yeah, I mean, at the start of the season, even like in the first month, before things went super south, you could understand, wanting to ride with the veterans and obviously you spend money on them and you want them to play. But at this stage and this last month, you think about what is the best thing for the franchise, and it is to figure out if any of these guys are good. And you can't. The problem is a month of games, especially when you have so many of them that have to kind of shuffle through playing time. It's hard to really get a full sample, but you gotta try, right? It's just and it's a hard thing. And I know I think Garcia and Soler are both hurt right now, I believe. So that opens up some playing time, but it's hard, right? Like even with the guy like Stallings and Fortes, it's like at this point, what is the point of Jacob Stallings, right? Like he's helpful because he's obviously catching this pitching staff that has succeeded a lot, so you can give him credit for that. But again, it's got to be about the hitters, and whether it's Burdick, whether it's Gerard Encarnacion, whether it's Fortes, Bleday, De La Cruz, like I don't know how you get all these guys enough run. And the hard thing is who do they, like they internally, they believe in some of these guys more than others. And you can figure that out based on maybe who's playing, but it is still hard to really gauge that. And, it is also an undeniable factor, which is that JJ Bleday was a really high draft pick. And so you want to see him probably more than you want to see Gerard Encarnacion or even Joe LeBlanc or a De La Cruz, and so I don't disagree with that necessarily, but at some point you want to just get the best players. And I don't know how they're not going to solve that in 1 month, even if they do exclusively play young guys. But I do still think that is the correct way to go for the rest of this season for sure.
Yeah. Adam,
go ahead, Daniel.
No, go. I was just introducing you right now.
Oh, my bad, man. So, Jordan hit it right on the head there with this system. We've always talked about, privately and publicly within our chat and amongst everyone else, how it really comes down to the development system overall, and also who they're wanting to select. We've talked about how guys like Bleday are likely not the best players to be picking at number 4 in the draft, especially when you got 5-tool high school players and other guys who are more who have a higher potential just in general to be better. It also, you can also it helps not to pick guys like Bleday and Connor Scott, but it also helps to develop guys like Jose Salas not to hit everything, half of their balls underneath 15 degrees of a launch angle. So that would help a lot also. And you can only cycle through guys like Monty, guys like Lewis, Jose, and so many of these prospects until it's they're all top prospects, but how many of them are actually panning out? And it's not always their fault. It's got to be the PD system at some point. And that's been the problem for 5 years. And, pitching is not relatively difficult to develop anymore like it used to. We have the metrics and abilities and the kinematics we have available for pitching is far more advanced than we have for hitting. And that's why you see so many pitchers are just dominating now versus hitting, because it's just so much harder to develop and find advanced like research for hitting, just because it's harder to map playing, and that's like new technology coming out. But regardless, like it's just the hitting development system, like other clubs are doing it, and it's just lacking the requisite personnel at the very top, and it trickles down from there. It's been the reason why the Marlins have been somewhat of a lackluster franchise for the most part of its existence, but it's really like it's like, it's neglect from ownership. But even now, you can really like focus in on the lack of development, and that's really the reason why it hasn't been working properly.
Yeah,
we talked about this before.
I wanted to get Isaac Zook in here. We just activated him off the IL, especially for this stream. He was feeling under the weather. Couldn't miss this one. Isaac, we're talking about the young players, Jazz, and what the Marlins are doing now, bringing in guys like Burdick, Harar, Blade. What are your thoughts in terms of Marlins? They're bringing up young players and just their development of these hitting prospects.
I mean, I think it's, I guess, about time, you could say, that we're finally getting to see these draft picks from 2019 and in Fortes' case, 2018. But, I think the better question would be, what are they going to do with all of the miss? I know you guys mentioned earlier it's not a big sample size, but they're all hitting under 200. And if not one of those guys pans out, what do you do? And I thought to myself this when I was walking the dog, and I'm sweating because I'm sick. And who's one guy in the whole organization that you can point to and say, okay, 25 home runs and he hits 250 at least, besides Jazz? Name me one guy. Not one guy. And so here I'm just thinking, what? Hope, Blade. And a better question would be, who can you have a bobblehead for next year that they haven't done for already? Who's the guarantee?
No, this is a great way to think about it, right?
Yeah.
Like because you have Jazz, thankfully, right? And he's someone that anyone's tuning in to watch, not just Marlins fans.
Right.
But it sounds silly at first because it's like, oh, that's the business side. But it's like, no, but that also speaks to who your roster is and why am I excited to come out? And there are a million other reasons why, Marlins attendance is what it is. But like, you gotta have play. There's only so many players, and it helps to have the Sandys that it's like becomes an event, right? When Sandy's pitching, the same way that it was, I'm a Mariners fan, like the way that it was with Felix when the Mariners were terrible for most of almost his entire tenure, same kind of thing. Like Sandy, it's the same kind of vibe, honestly, the way that he's kind of gotten to that point. But to your point, it's just like, who is that? And you just mentioned, okay, well, we're not taking Blade instead of high school guys. Like you just took Jacob Berry, right? And when you take a Jacob Berry, the pressure is on him to be good so fast. And obviously that is like, you can't take your time, right? With a Watson, obviously he's had his issues this year, but you're not giving up on that anytime soon. But when you draft a guy like a college guy and you send him straight to A-ball or high A or double A, and then, he didn't do so great. Now he's the same age as everyone at the level. Like now here we are, right? And of course he still made the big leagues, but it's hard to project and feel really good about that. And that's just true for so many of these guys. It's not like these guys don't have any prospect pedigree. But to your point, Adam, like, yes, it is probably objectively easier to develop pitching for everybody, although the Marlins have obviously done a good job of identifying and developing it. But there are teams that are good at developing hitters all over the place. Mm-hmm. And they're pulling Charles LeBlanc's. The Dodgers have 50 of these guys, and that's why they can trade them for depth pitching and stuff like that. And the Marlins can maybe do some of that in reverse, right? And maybe make some trades out of their pitching surplus. Because it's not like the pitchers are it's funny because normally you're looking at your crop of pitching prospects and say, well, not all these guys are going to work out. Yeah. But in the Marlins case, like a lot of them have, even sometimes better than expected. Like I was not a Trevor Rogers fan when they drafted him. And a lot of the industry was like, that was weird. And I know he's had some struggles this year. But last year was like, oh my God, you really have something here. And so there's a lot of versions of that. I know injuries come more with pitchers. But to your point, Isaac, like it's really hard to see what this offensive core is. And when you don't have anything like that, it's really hard to like imagine a path to winning games. It's really, really difficult.
And we talk about the pitching. The Phillies have a Sandy, per se. I don't think we can count on Sandy to be this dominant every single year. The Mets have two Sandys. The Braves have a couple Sandy, So I find it very hard to imagine that this team will ever be able to compete in this division.
Yeah. Shout out to Danny Alvarez, the 7-time Fish Stripes Marlins Jeopardy champ. We already retired his number. He's in our Hall of Fame. Big shout out.
Danny, can I shout out Danny for a second?
Of course.
Danny is top 10 human being in the baseball industry. If I'm going top 10 humans in the baseball industry, he's
excuse me.
He's probably top 10, and he's not 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, or 2. So I love him dearly. And Marlins Park is lucky to have him around. Sorry, Lone Depot. Excuse me. Forgive me. I would never mess that up.
You need to come to the Marlins press box, Jordan. It's definitely top 5.
There's
top
plenty
3
of space.
It's a top press box. With that, I wanted to also ask you guys. There was a series that happened a few days ago, Citrus series between the Marlins and the Tampa Bay Rays. Not farewell for the Marlins, but we are talking about the Marlins and their franchise, and these are two almost similar teams, similar franchises. But it always seems like one is always better than the other. One knows what they're doing, while the other one kind of
Wait, let me just give you the stat. 19 of the last 21 games between these teams, the Rays have won. 19-2 against the Marlins going back the last 4+ years. Wild. The first thing I want to hear from Jordan really quick about the Shane McClanahan thing. Have you ever seen something like that, about somebody getting scratched like at the very moment the game was starting while he was warming up in the bullpen like that?
Yeah, I mean, again, like it was definitely weird and seemed a lot scarier than it seemed like it actually ended up being. Although shoulder stuff is not what you want to hear. That is basically the worst possible news for a pitcher, I would say. And I hope it's not. I don't have any reporting on that. I just know that when I hear pitcher injuries, not that you want to hear elbow, because elbow can mean surgery, but like that's normal, and then you're out for a year and you come back. Shoulder is like terrifying. So I hope he's okay. That was very weird. But I'm glad you brought that up, because I tuned into the series and they flashed the graphic. Oh, Marlins and Rays have 18-2 in their last. I was like, oh my god, like isn't that? And they play. See, that's obviously not it's not the same. It's interleague, but obviously they play a good bit. And but it goes to what we're talking about, right? Like It's not like the Rays payroll is that big, right? These other teams have figured it out. But man, they have built. First of all, they figured it out a long time ago. But you go back and look at the Rays, and the Rays drafted terribly for a decade straight. Like they were not doing certain things well, and it didn't matter because surely the amateur arm of their org was just screwing up left and right, and the pro arm of their org, player dev, etc., was crushing it and figuring out, oh, it doesn't matter who you give us, we're just going to make them great players. And now they're also drafting well, right? I'm not surprised they've figured that out as well. But there's just so many layers to building a good organization that you can do it without a high payroll. But it has to start at literally the earliest levels, which is another layer that obviously the Marlins have struggled when you're signing Victor Mesa and stuff like that. Like when you're whiffing on those two, you're really, really gonna go. You're working from behind already, and you just got to be so good at like every little thing to be a team like the Rays. And it's just it's wild. It's really, really wild.
And
I'm
Jordan,
fully convinced that the main reason that they haven't left Tropicana Field is because underneath Tropicana Field is a massive supercomputer that just decides every single move for the Rays. And just the Marlins don't have that. And there's one thing about the comparison that bothers me is that you can compare the Marlins to the Rays, but the Marlins are trying to be what they can't be because they're not doing it right.
And like Jordan, you mentioned with
the entire thing right to be able to be the Rays, but you're not.
All right, Jordan, you mentioned with Tampa, I alluded to this earlier in kind of like talking about like with an ownership change. Like it took Stuart Steinberg and company coming in and replacing the old ownership group that founded the franchise as a Devil Rays in '97. Because they were whiffing on, like they had like their picks with Hammy, they had Crawford, Rocco, but they whiffed on guys like Delman Young, DPJ Upton was okay, but it took that ownership group change in 2008 for them to really make that change, because it starts from the top up, as we talked about. where, you know, the ownership hires the guys below them, and then like the idea and the attitudes trickle down because it's from the very beginning and from the very top. And like Miami's ever since, like for its entire, even like when they got like, I don't want to say lucky, but like the wild card World Series wins in 97 and 03, you know, like you sneak in by the skin of your teeth into the playoffs, and it's just like, yeah, you built a team, but like it's not sustained success because ownership doesn't want to invest in a winning franchise and wants to put, like, it's like, you know, once you have guys like Conine, or like later on it's like D-Train, and then Juan Pierre, and then Hanley, and then Giancarlo, Marcel, all the down like through the years, those guys are going to cost money, and they're going to, you know, they're good players for a reason, and you're going to have to spend some cash and some change to keep them. And if you don't, then you're going to have that recycling player development, like constantly going on, just like Tampa Bay does, because if they're going to be churning out $70, $80 million payrolls and still winning 90, 100 games a year, you got to have to trade guys like a Pablo Lopez, or in their case, an Austin Meadows or a Tommy Pham, 4 or 5 years into their team control. And then it's going to take like fans saying, like, you know, question, be like, what the heck? But then replace them with a Josh Lowe, and it's like players that they thought they know would be even better. So it's a sacrifice, and it's going to take one way or another, and the Marlins haven't decided one way. It's more of just like a business for
and signed Wander and trade him before you know you're going to be paying that backloaded contract. They do things right. They know
exactly, literally, exactly, literally.
But you gotta nail those trades, man, and that's not. I mean, they have a lot of them, right? I mean, the Meadows one was a no-brainer. The Snell one is still kind of probably ends up being a win, although it certainly was a pretty brutal PR hit.
Chris Archer trade was a fleece,
and yeah. So, and then for, you know, obviously I don't have to tell you guys about all the Marlins trades, but when you end up with essentially just Sandy and Jazz out of trading your 5, you know, star players, I mean, Sixto, whatever. Speaking of shoulders, right? Like that's, I mean, that's what we're talking about, right? Like that's why you're usually not headlining your deals with pitchers, although in their case it's worked out in some cases, and in some not quite as much. But yeah, man, that's the thing. Like you can't, even if they had hit, like think about it this way, right? Let's say the season had gone really well with the veterans, right? Let's say all those guys were like good players, not amazing. Soler doesn't hit 40 homers, but like they're good, right? What do they win 80 games and like finish 4th or 5th? And like the future is still the same. Like that's the problem. Right. That's why you have to, there's so much that needs to get better below that. Right now it feels terrible because the stuff at the top is really not working. But you can't change that stuff with no single move or no single off season. Sure, it did feel like, oh, we're trying now more, and I appreciate that, right? I can give you guys a little bit of insight on this because this is something I never ended up writing, but I saw the Marlins in, I want to say it was May in DC. And I wanted to write, basically, this was before everything went off the rails. I basically was like, okay, they tried. And it's looking like they could maybe hang around here. They had the pitching
because you were watching them play the Nationals.
Well, trust me, exactly. That was part of it. I was like, oh, well, they'll be in a good mood playing the Nationals. But so I talked to them, and I was like, and I talked specifically. Remember having a conversation with Garrett Cooper, where he's like, yeah, like now I'm not the only guy. And now fast forward 4 months later, and we're like, nope, well, he's still the only guy.
The ball's on that guy, man. Jeez.
And he's not, and at this point, he's not even hitting.
Well, at this point, yeah, he's obviously been slumping in the last month or so. But yeah, no, but that's the thing, right? And he was on the record. He said, like, yeah, like I'm like it feels good to see that like they are bringing in. Whereas, you know, last year he's looking around like I literally have to do everything, right? And that's Garrett Cooper, right? Like Garrett Cooper, who is a success story, should be batting 7th, right? If you think you're a good team, right? Instead, he's, you know, your only all-star hitter, right? So look, it's not as bad as it looked this year, but to the point, right? Like think about if it had gone well, what would that have looked like? What would that have actually accomplished? And then when you think about the sustainability, nothing else would have changed, right? We wouldn't have even seen some of these other younger guys who maybe have a chance. They wouldn't have even gotten this opportunity. So that's why it is so important to kind of get those plate appearances as much as you can in. But it's really hard, and that's why the only obvious move is, as I tweeted, right, is to make a trade. But it's just so hard to do that. And those Gallon for Jazz trades are so rare like it was crazy at the time, and it's worked out nicely for both sides. Obviously, now is not the best time to be talking about Zach Gallen as a Marlins fan, but it's fine. Like that was still a big risk for both sides, and hopefully it will end up paying off for both sides, and that's fine.
Yeah,
like that's so risky. And this is the thing, how many hitters like that are available in that kind of trade? What other teams are looking to match? It is so hard to do that. It'd be kind of a fun thought exercise to actually look around and identify some of those players. Maybe you guys have already started to think about that. I don't know. But
a much lesser version of that. The one move they did at the deadline was get Jordan Groshans, who's not the same. He's a much different profile player, but for what it's worth, he's actually been playing really well.
But at what cost?
At the cost of a couple relievers,
at the cost of Zach Pop, right? Which is send him home to
yeah.
And the thing with Jazz is that at the time of the trade, he was in Double-A, striking out 40% of the time, hitting 200. So they were able to identify. I know it was a handpicked player by Jeter, from what I understood, and they got him, and he ended up being an all-star. So that maybe gives you a little bit of hope, saying, okay, maybe they can identify another player that's in the lower level of the minors that's struggling but has this huge potential. But
you're talking about when they traded for Jazz.
In 2019, Jazz was striking out 40% in Double-A.
Yeah.
He was still the number one prospect for the Diamondbacks, but still, he wasn't putting in good numbers. So
that's a really good point. And Groshans, obviously, you're betting on the pedigree, although he's been terrible in AAA. I don't know how he's been since the trade, but that's the kind of guy I'd say, okay, great. Like if I see, it's the same thing, right? When the Dodgers, sign or trade for some former first rounder, it's like, oh, they'll figure it out, right? They'll fix it. And they can't even always figure it out, right? Like it's so hard to say with those, but also like trades like that. On one hand, it's like, great, you're taking the big swing, and sometimes it works out and it's Jazz. But also, like we need to build depth, right? We need to get some. Yeah. We need to get as many more chances, more bites of the apple, or whatever, how many terms you want to say. And I'm not sure. I'm not saying that they 100% could have done that in trading Anthony Bass and Zach Pop, but that's the risk of taking that approach of just trading for one guy. So it's so hard, man. It's such a challenge, and I don't know what the obvious path forward is, but they're gonna have to make some sort of drastic moves. I just don't know what it is.
And we talked about this in our spaces over a month ago. Alex C and I were mentioning about how what is the direction of the team, and how do you sell a trade off to Marlins fans, to try to tear down the club again, which is the fifth or sixth time in the team's history. My rationale was that the textbook definition of insanity is keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So yeah, it sucks. A lot of us speak from the perspective that we're frustrated for decades, Marlins fans, but we need to kind of get past the defense mechanism and say that a tear down is necessary if we want to build. It's we saw, I'm a huge trusted process guy. We saw with basketball, it's different, but the Houston Astros did the exact same thing. They traded every single shred of talent: Carlos Lee, Roy Oswalt, Hunter Pence, Jason Castro. Eventually, that's a later one. It's a bad example, but literally those three first guys, and other players as well, for literally anything they could get. And none of those guys yielded anything eventually, but it's just the concept of just liquidating every single shred of talent you have, because what are they going to mean to you? Right now. So if we try to build a team and try to put something together right now, we win 80, 85 games. That's great. What does that get us? Maybe a wild card in the new scheme of things in the new MLB formats. And so what? We play the Dodgers, we get bounced. 2 games, anything can happen. You want to solidify and give yourself the best chance to win. You want to win 90, 95, 100 plus. The best teams are now winning over 100 games. Every single division winner now wins over 100 games, at least in the American League. So you got to put yourself in that situation. You got to think about the surplus, and we can build and liquidate guys and try to get a couple of extra talents, try to win next year or the year after. And yeah, we could win 80, 85, but at what cost? And you're going to have to tear the team down a couple years after just to have everybody else pissed off again, and you accomplish nothing. So especially with the Marlins, especially with the fan base, arguably the most upset and the most mistreated fan base I've noticed in North American professional sports.
Oakland exists.
Oakland also exists, but this is really, really bad.
Oakland
At
is,
least Oakland has been to the playoffs a few times, and those guys packed the Coliseum. This is
That's
really
an
bad.
interesting
It's
question.
been talked about a lot. That's an interesting question.
Wait,
Yeah,
can I call time? Did you just say they packed the Coliseum?
Oh yeah, the Oakland
When-
fans when they're out there, they will pack the Coliseum on big games. Absolutely, they're some of when they're up there. Those are some of the rowdiest, craziest fans out there. They're from Oakland, man, but like for sure. Yeah, but like the same thing with St. Louis, although we crack everything. But it's really looking at it from a macro perspective and saying, yeah, we hate it. We hate what's going on. We got to bite the bullet. We got to take that investment, tear it down for a few more years, but we're going to like bear the fruits of that for the next 10, just like Houston, just like Tampa, and just how Baltimore is going to do for the next 10 years.
yeah. The thing is that like you can do that, but there's no reason to trust it if you don't have the right people in charge, right?
Exactly.
And I just don't think we know anywhere close to enough about Kim Ng's decisions. I mean, obviously they have not worked out so far. But there's so many more. There's so much more in an organization than the GM who's making the free agents, as I alluded to earlier, right? And so she can be screwing up free agent signings. And like I said, even if those had gone well, it'd be a pretty big hill to climb because there's just no sustainability, and that is extremely challenging. And that's why, like, I don't know, like, obviously trades are always risky. But at the same time, I don't know another path forward in terms of quickly restocking the upper part of your system when obviously some of the drafts have not worked out in the ways that you had hoped. And the whole thing about this too is it's just like there are clearly, as we started from here, there are a lot of teams that look at the Marlins pitching and think, damn, I wish I had that, right? To have a whole rotation that's this young and this talented with this kind of stuff. That's a fact, right? Like you would think that is still better than not having that and having a terrible offense. But so it's like there is a piece of the team that is there that is young. It's just that offensively, I just don't know how you get to enough runs. And maybe that is why you take the swing at the free agents the way that they did this year. But here's the other thing. Let's say they'd gotten to Castellanos. They'd be in last. They'd still be right there. Not in last, in fourth, right? So like that's hard, right? And that's why free agency is what it is, especially in the spot that they're in.
It's kind of difficult because they were also kind of there were talks or something about them getting Kyle Schwarber, and then you look at the year he's having, and then you kind of compare that to Jorge Soler and Avi Garcia, and he's leading the league in home run. The Marlins could use that, even.
I would say they could use some home runs. I think that's accurate.
Yeah. And now we're joined with Alex Carver from Marlins Miners, and we were just talking about Jordan Groshans. Alex, can you give us a little bit about Groshans, especially after that trade coming to Miami?
He's been good, really good. By the way, hello, Jordan. Big fan, and I like that you're a Peyton Burdick fan, so I now like you even more. Anyways,
let's go.
Groshans been really good. Plays multiple defensive positions. The power is limited, but he's shown a little bit more in Jacksonville. So for the one trade that they did make, I guess it's worked out for them. I wish they would have made more trades at the deadline, but they did not. They stayed status quo mostly, and they continue to stay status quo because this guy was not a September call-up somehow. They go to Brian De La Cruz and Jeff Brigham. So with a 40-man spot still open, I believe. So it's puzzling to me, the direction with roster construction as it has been here, the length of Kim Ng's tenure with the Marlins. But in terms of Groshans himself, to answer your question, he's been really good. I was hoping to see him this September, but I'm guessing they're just going to have to protect him from Rule 5.
Yeah. And with that, let's get into the preview of the series that we're here for, the Marlins and the Atlanta Braves. Before we get really into this series, I wanted to mention just another difference between two teams, the Marlins, and you look at the Braves, and you just look at the amount of money the Braves are spending on their young players. They just signed up Michael Harris to a big contract. Obviously, Acuna, Ozzie Albies, Austin Riley with a gigantic contract. And this is kind of goes the same thing we were mentioning before. Just what do you guys see when you guys look at the Braves and the way they're just holding on to these young players for years and years and willing to dish out that money on the hope that they will become, 7, 5 or a year players. Just how do you guys see that compared to the Marlins? Because this is the team they're going to see a lot of for a long time.
The Braves terrify me. There's not really much else to say. They've been just pumping out guys that just come up and hit. Their hitting development seems to work. And they have pitchers to back it up. So they won the World Series last year. That's not an accident. They seem to always just break. They start slow, build it up, and all of a sudden in the second half, you're like, where did they come from? And then they win everything. It's just the Braves. They're good.
Yeah. And Jordan, again, for you, what do you see here between the differences between also these two teams? We talked about the Rays, but this one seems just way much more of a bigger difference between these two teams. And it can be even more evident when you look at the lineups and the amount of blue on the Marlins and the amount of red on the Braves.
Well, and again, right, like, don't even worry about the extensions or how they're the core. Like, it's the fact that they've identified these players and developed them as they have. Like, who cares how long they're signed for? Like, they got them to the big leagues and they've been really good, right? And that's in the draft with guys like Riley and Harris, and Grissom has been, I mean, that is like one of the crazier prospect breakouts we've had in the entire league this year, I would say. Obviously Riley as well, guys that were not perfect prospects. Harris, especially, his offensive performance is stunning considering his limitations, seeming limitations in the minor leagues. And then obviously guys like Acuna, it's like, this is, I'm experiencing this now as a Mariners fan. It's like, sometimes you just get lucky and you get a transcendent player and it's Julio, and then your whole franchise changes, right? And that does not happen. That has obviously only happened to a handful of teams over the last 10 years, but that's also a route to, becoming more relevant as you just find one of those guys, much easier said than done. But the Braves, it's just a combination of that. And they obviously have the financial muscle to keep guys around and then to develop enough to make a trade for a guy like Olsen. So they are obviously an extremely well-oiled machine at this stage. And it's and they're not even, Acuna is playing on one leg and he's not even close to, those numbers, those Sagas numbers still look pretty good. And he's clearly not even close to 100%. So, and I'm not sure he will be for the rest of the season. So the ceiling with them is pretty crazy. This is interesting. I don't look at these enough. I spent so much time on Baseball Savant, but I don't know if I've ever looked at the series previews like this. This is really good. Hey, come on. Garrett Cooper's been fine. He's been fine.
Yeah, for the whole season overall, just trending in the wrong direction with Cooper right there.
Oh, man.
Garrett Cooper used to to much darker red.
The Marlins.
This lineup
is there
doesn't
anyone
even
that
have
really
Albies.
stands out?
The lineup doesn't even have Albies. He's rehabbing actually against Jacksonville with Gwinnett. So, and they just bring up a guy like Vaughn Grissom. Yeah, no big deal. Like seriously, they're a ridiculous team. Like Noah said, they get the most out of their young talent. They're able to develop it well, and like Jordan said, they're able to keep it around because they have the money to do it. So, it's a much different scenario than Bruce Sherman and Kim Ng's Miami Marlins, unfortunately, in terms of offensive player development and financial flexibility, is the differences between these two organizations. Definitely right.
Yeah. And when you look at the Marlins, just in that lineup, Jacob Stallings hitting 6, just, having Joey, Brian Anderson, Garrett Cooper 3rd, like Jordan mentioned, and in the perfect world, Garrett Cooper will be around 6, 7. Isaac, looking at these lineups, talk to me. Just what's your take on all this red and blue?
There's nothing to compare and contrast that.
Sandy, we need a miracle.
Yeah, you know what? Sandy's actually a pretty heavy underdog today. So in case you do with that what you will, I think it's like plus 158.
Yeah.
But no, just look at the red. Look at Austin Riley, for Pete's sake, man. That's just impressive stuff. But no, I got nothing to say. I have a bad voice today, so I'm gonna save my power for a better question. Sorry, no offense, Daniel.
I'll weigh in on the fact that I'm happy to see that Miguel Rojas is playing. When he was talking about his wrist earlier on this week, it did not seem like he was very happy about it, and he didn't look like he thought he was going to be able to play for a few more days. But he got He went to see the doctor yesterday, and then flew up to meet the team, and he's now playing. So hopefully his defense is still on par with how it's been this entire season, which is arguably Gold Glove caliber at shortstop. He's been absolutely incredible at that position. His bat, not so much, and that's why he's hitting ninth. I do like to see that Uriar is getting another start. Lewin, of course, at first base is always fun. And I do think if he gets more consistent reps, his bat will catch up. I don't know when, but I think it will happen. And most importantly for me, Brian De La Cruz is back. So that's really all I care about.
The disappointment
He's on the. He's finally going to continue his quest for 30 home runs aggregate between AAA and the major leagues.
Yeah. For people wondering, Avi Garcia is not playing in the rehab game tonight with Jacksonville. We were assuming that he'd be back from his rehab anyway, but that seems to be pretty imminent. If he's not even going to be playing, maybe he plays one more game on Saturday and then rejoins the team on Sunday. But remember, that is still coming. That is coming very soon. And for the moment, now that the roster is full, they are going to inevitably send down some sort of position player to make room for him. And thankfully, we don't have to look at that right now, but that's coming very soon, any day now.
I think now is the perfect time to talk about some of the positive, or maybe the only positive from Marlins tonight. And that is, excuse me, who's on the bump, who's pitching. Sandy Alcantara, the Cy Young, already book it, give it to him. It's going to be him against Charlie Moore, and Sandy has faced the Braves a lot. I wonder if Eli, we can get the numbers maybe on Sandy versus the Braves. But again, just what do you guys expect to see from this matchup? You're going to have Sandy going up against Acuna, Austin Riley, Dansby Swanson's having a really great year. Just what do you guys expect or want to see from Sandy? What does he have anything else to prove more that he's a Cy Young, and is this the game to do so?
Yeah, well, this is footage for the last time he pitched in Atlanta in late May. So some familiar faces, some different. And I think, didn't he go pretty close to a complete game or the whole distance? This was one of his many awesome starts against a lot of the same hitters that he'll face tonight.
This was his best start of the year, or arguably.
Yeah, in terms of strikeouts, I think this was
14 strikeouts, no walks over 8 innings. So, yeah, I didn't know he was allowed to strike out that many. That's actually news to me.
The question is Spencer Strider allowed to strike out that many? My Lord.
You mentioned Sandy really quick. Quick prediction, will we see a complete game from Sandy tonight?
Oh, it's Sandy Day, but
he just did it against the Dodgers, so sure, why not? I mean, let's be real, guys. Sandy going for the Cy Young is essentially the only thing left that matters for the Marlins season. I mean, all of the stuff we said before, right? But in terms of what, and they're gonna let him try. It's not a situation where, he's at 105 pitches, or he's at 99 pitches, 3-8. Oh, let's be careful because we're saving him for the playoffs.
You leave him out there until it gets to 120.
Yeah. I mean, his pitch, I guess his highest pitch count this year is 117. So yeah, I mean, sure, but the Braves are really good, so it's not like it's he was pretty amazing last time, and he only went 8. So I don't know.
And, going on from the Braves and the NL East, I think this is probably the bigger question I wanted to ask. Aside from this, anything happening from this series, just what do you think the philosophy has to change for the Marlins to get in the middle of the top of the NL East? You have the Phillies, they're willing to spend money on big guys. You have the Mets, who are, the Mets, Steve Cohen, the biggest paycheck in baseball. You have the Braves that we're seeing. The Nationals are even willing to trade Juan Soto and get prospects, so they're obviously looking for the future and are really doing great there. What do the Marlins have to do? Because I feel like they're kind of in limbo. Yes, they have Jazz, they have Sandy, but it's a big gap between those two and then everyone else.
Well, I think we talked about this. There's no easy path forward. We hope for the best down the stretch, even in this very wacky month where results can be a little deceiving, that they simply need some of these young controllable hitters to step forward and either assert themselves as part of next year's team or as really tempting trade pieces to go after a more established hitter at those positions as well. So they need some positives on that end, particularly. I am just very excited. This is our first stream since they've had their whole sexiest possible rotation back with Sandy, with Pablo, with Eddie, with Jesus Luzardo, and now with Trevor Rogers. And so even though, as Jordan mentioned, the Sandy Cy Young race is the big topic, just more generally, the fact that this whole rotation, if these guys are what we watch, the final month of the season, and there is a certain level where if your rotation is that special, like if we do reach a point where the rotation is the best in baseball or very near the top, like that does change the bar that you need to clear offensively, right? It's about scoring runs and preventing runs. The one thing really holding the Marlins back, well, one of the things that needs to be acknowledged is that they haven't had that elite pitching staff, even though it feels like they should. They've had Sandy on the top, but you look at the overall pitching staff and it just hasn't been all that special. And that's how you can wind up losing. You're not going to lose 90 plus games if you have the best pitching staff in baseball. So that's something that we'll be watching. Who's it in the series? We get to see Eddie Cabrera again. So excited to see every start of his in particular are given his upside. I'm always laser focused on those and see what he shows in the particular way that he goes about his business as well. But that's, again,
can I ask
some guys to actually look good down the stretch, and that will certainly make their outlook a lot brighter next year if they feel like they have more than they currently have in terms of young assets.
Yeah.
I have a fun assignment for everybody here on the call. Indulge me, because again, I don't get to talk to Marlins fans very often. So this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to talk to 6 Marlins fans at the same time. I mean, this is really efficient. And you mentioned the pitching. This is more big picture because, like, honestly, in terms of the series, it's like hopefully Sandy wins, and then after that, you just kind of hope for the best. So, and Liz, again,
Sandy and Pablo, and hope for a downpour.
There you go. Yeah, and hope the roof doesn't close. So I'm looking at these to the point about do they trade any guys for hitters, whatever. I'm looking at this rotation you mentioned right now, Eli, right? Sandy, Pablo, Rogers, Luzardo, Eddie Cabrera, right? Okay, so there's 5 pitchers. All of them are very young. Great. Then we also have could start a game conceivably in the next 12 months. Garrett, Eliezer Hernandez, right? Max Meyer, Yuri Perez. Did Jake Eater get Tommy John? I totally missed that.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Max Meyer
when did he get Tommy John?
So Meyer will definitely not be pitching the next 12 months. But Eater,
okay,
yes.
great. So
Meyer just got Tommy John.
So here we go. Here's the assignment, and we're gonna go rapid fire for everybody. 2024 opening day rotation. What would you like it to be? Daniel, we go to you.
2024 rapid fire. Obviously, Sandy. I think Edward Cabrera has to be on there. Could be maybe someone I want to maybe specifically put him at 2 or so.
Honestly, I don't care about the order. I don't care about the order. Just I want to know who are the 5.
Sandy, Yuri, Edward Cabrera, Pablo. Let's Max Meyer.
Okay, that's your 5. Great. Eli?
Yeah. Sandy, Yuri, Max Meyer, Luzardo, Jake Eater.
Okay. Ooh. All right. We were getting the mix. All right. Noah.
Can I do a 6-man rotation?
No. 5.
Fine. Sandy, Pablo, at Luzardo, Yuri, and Max.
Okay. Interesting. All right, Isaac, I know you're sick, so let's save those words, man. Let's keep it brief.
Sandy, Yuri, Eater, Luzardo, and Edward Cabrera.
Okay.
That was my rotation.
All right, Adam.
That was literally my rotation.
Great.
I'm not kidding you.
Wonderful.
Great. Makes us faster.
Now let's go to Alex. As you're the prospects guy, so are you just gonna go with Jacob
Yuri,
Miller?
Zach McCambly, Eli Villalobos,
Andrew Nardi.
Luis Palacios.
Oh, Nard Dog.
There's so many. He's not a rotation guy. There's so many guys to call out, but I'll give you my 5 because you said it's rapid fire. So Sandy, Yuri Perez, Jake Eater, Max Meyer, and I'll throw you a curveball, Dax Fulton.
Oh, knew it. That's the winner. That's the winner.
That was going to be my literal curveball, right?
That's his secondary.
Amazing. Nicely done, everybody. I really appreciate it. All right, ready? I'm going to go. Here's mine.
I have one question for you. Let's say if shit does hit the fan and they do have to sort of rebuild. What is the best way to rebuild a major league team? Is it to over a core of hitters and position players like the Astros sort of did, or do you build around pitching and defense? Because obviously Miami tried the latter, didn't work out, but worked out for the Astros, worked out for the Dodgers to build around a core of position players.
From this stage, from where they're at now, I think that the only path forward is to trade some of the pitching for hitting and trade the older hitting for younger hitting. And that's basically Brian Anderson and Cooper and Wendell and Stallings. Who knows what those guys have actual value. But I think you basically need to acquire as many hitters as possible. And I know they have a bunch that they have done that in some senses. But again, that's why it's more important to change who the hell is running the farm, who the hell is amateur scout, XYZ, all that stuff needs to be fixed first. But in terms of building it from where they're at, that's what I would say.
Right. Because you look at the Cubs, they built around that big infield of bats. And the Astros, they built around those bats.
Look, every year the World Series winner wins and we're like, oh, well, that's how you do it. It's there's some weird ways to get there. But also now you look at the best teams and it is still a pretty consistent group of the same, 4 to 5, right? We're starting. The elite is the best teams in the league are really kind of separating themselves in that sense. And so, but again, it just takes years to get to that point. So I really appreciate your guys' answers on all that. I think it's super interesting, understandably, right? No one's naming Sixto. No one's naming Rogers. I'm surprised how many of you guys said Luzardo, but
personally on Sixto, I think he's never going to pitch another major league inning.
Yeah,
that's personally.
I'm surprised how many people said Pablo.
I'm surprised how many people said Pablo too.
That's because that was a hard decision. I just left.
I get that, right? I did ask. The phrasing was who you want, right? And so I understand.
He was moments away from getting traded. So if everything that Jordan said is true, which is true, everything that Jordan said is true, you need to trade from depth to get what you need.
Yeah.
Guys like Braxton's pitching the best baseball of his life. Yeah. This is definitely sell high on Braxton. I love Braxton.
Totally.
But Pablo as well is a sell. I think this is the best Pablo's ever going to be. So get what you can while you can. Honestly. Right. So that's me.
Alex, a month ago you were team no trade Pablo. Now you're all over my idea.
Well,
you were roasting the shit out of me a month ago.
Okay. Well, what was his status at that time, Adam? You know it.
Same thing. My opinion has not changed in a month.
I'm talking about really quick. Let me ask Jordan. Trade deadline. You're Kim Ang. Do you pull the trigger on Pablo Lopez getting traded?
Are we talking about to the Yankees?
Let's say to the Yankees. I think he was Oswaldo Peraza was going to be in the deal for that.
Yeah, I would have traded him. I don't know. I would have just been shopping him way more. I think so. Just because it's you have so many of these guys, and it's clearly you still have the surplus of pitching, and yes, guys are going to keep getting hurt, but you're still going to have more than most teams. And when you don't have anything close to a sure thing, as Isaac said, as soon as he got on here in the upper levels of the minors or in the young guys in the big leagues, you have to get those. But again, you have to have someone that knows who you're acquiring and are going to make sure that you're identifying someone that's definitely going to be good. So, but I think it's super. Yeah, it's really. Sixto's obviously his own thing, but man, I appreciate the variety there because I imagine when you have that many guys, it's interesting to try and pick it. Can I give mine?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think the obvious ones, the no doubter ones, which I think everybody said are Sandy, Yuri, and Max Meyer. I think did no one say this? Did someone not say Max Meyer? I
don't think Max Meyer will be in the rotation.
Okay, so you don't think Max Meyer's just
Eddie
relieve
has a good chance.
That's fine. I'm a Max Meyer guy.
I don't know about Eddie either, but him over Meyer.
Right. So Eddie's the one that's when I watch him, I'm like, oh yes. And then sometimes I'm the opposite. I'm like, no chance. Just put this guy in the bullpen. So I'm tough on, but I think I would still go with those four. And then Cody Poteet or whatever. I don't know.
What is it
he
about
also had Tommy John.
He also had Tommy John
for you.
Hey, it's fine. 2024. He'll be back. He'll be throwing harder than ever.
Now I gotta know who's going to be in the outfield. I think that's the bigger question.
No, that is way more important. It's just less fun to talk about. it's way more important, but it is much.
Brian De La Cruz.
Does Jacob Stallings catch Sandy on opening day?
in 2024. God, I hope not.
2024.
No, it'll be Nick Fortes.
Oh my God,
Paul
Joe Mack,
McIntosh.
make it happen.
Ooh,
Oh,
good
McIntosh.
call.
Yes.
Here, I will say the one prospect, the one Marlins prospect, besides Peyton Burdick, who I love dearly, I am all in on Ian Lewis. I know he's not been like super amazing this year, but I'm a real believer. So
Let me ask a follow up to Jordan on this really quick, and this can be quick because I know we got good predictions. Ian Lewis or Yuri Cape?
Lewis. But I don't know enough about Cape to say that for sure. But Lewis, I have heard a lot of them.
There's questions on if Cape is going to stick in the middle infield, so it's fair. But yeah, Cape is a stud, man. They're both studs, but yeah, they're both really good. Lewis spent a lot of time hurt this year with a foot injury, but yeah, they're both going to be really good. Sharing an infield soon. Actually,
what's Cyrus Johnson up to? And there's so many.
Nothing good.
Okay, never mind. Sorry.
Cyrus Johnson was in like single as a 17-year-old.
I think probably would you guys agree that the top hitting prospect for the Marlins is Jose Salas?
Yeah, probably.
You'll see that
Right now,
top 30 list. He is the top hitting prospect for me. Not because he's amazing, just because there's no one else.
Just because Jacob Berry is not.
I think it is, Danny, but I don't think Yeti Cape is far away. Honestly,
Yeah.
I've never seen somebody. I've never seen a switch hitter with such a different swing between left and right than I saw with Jacob Berry when he came and took BP with the team. His righty swing is the most choppy swing I've ever seen, and his lefty swing is the smoothest I've ever seen.
The selection of Jacob Berry made absolutely no sense. We've talked about this.
We talked about this already. Yeah.
This is
we're running out of time.
Predictions.
I just say too, do not give up on Khalil Watson. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what Alex said. Alex,
that's Alex.
Do not give up on. I'm not saying this because I know where any of you guys stand on him. I'm just speaking. I'm speaking generally.
Mm-hmm.
Too much talent, but
yeah.
To be clear, I never said I was out on him. I said it will take a lot, and I still will stick to that. But we'll see what he does. Hopefully, he can clean up his attitude, clean up his crap, and I think he has a little bit here in the second half. It's been better. So
I think I'd still rather have him than Jacob Berry.
Yeah,
I think probably agree.
I don't know.
100%.
it's a good question.
Now, it's time to our favorite part of the stream.
This is prediction time.
It's time.
What is that?
That is our new intro for prediction time. This is our best time of the stream. For those of you who may be watching new, here are our predictions.
God,
we give our series prediction, MVP, and our winner. We have Eli at top with 47. I am trailing him 46. Kevin, who couldn't be here, 43. And fourth place, Isaac. So it's really tight to get on here for the number one position on series predictions. Jordan, you will be joining that list after your predictions. For this is giving who you will win the series and your series MVP. Noah, I know you have to go, so you're up. You're batting leadoff.
So I'm gonna go. The Braves take 2 of 3. This is the first time I'm picking the Marlins to lose a series. Mark down your calendars. And I'm going to take Austin Riley.
All right, Isaac.
I think the Marlins get swept all 3 games. I know for sure they're losing on Sunday. Sundays at Truist Park is like, it's
voodoo.
It's bad. It's bad juju. And the MVP, let's give it to Michael Harris the third.
Second.
Why did I say the third? I knew that. Sorry. The second.
Eli.
All of you corrected me.
Our leader.
The Marlins go 1-2 in this series. Braves winning the series. MVP Max Fried on Sunday.
Ooh, I like that.
That's another Cy Young favorite, but up there.
I need somebody to ask him if he's going to play for Team Israel in WBC.
Adam, all the way in Paris, your prediction.
So I'm gonna say the Marlins lose 2 out of 3. They're gonna win the Sandy game today, or at least from where I'm in. And my series MVP, I'm gonna go ahead and pick Austin Riley as well.
All right, Alex.
I was going to say exactly what Isaac said, but I'll switch it up a little bit. I won't move off of that. I agree with him. The Marlins are getting swept. I was going to pick Michael Harris, but I'll give it to – we talked about him before. Albies is on his way back. This guy wants to make a point, wants to make a statement, continue to make a statement. So Vaughn Grissom, MVP.
Ooh. All right. Here, before we get to Jordan, we have some predictions from people who aren't here tonight. Grant, his prediction, Braves 2 out of 3, and he has Sandy MVP. For Kevin, he has the Braves taking the Marlins winning 1 game, MVP Austin Riley. And for myself, I have the Marlins winning 1 game and MVP, someone who hasn't been mentioned yet, Matt Olson, MVP. Matt Olson.
Bad pick.
Jordan, our guest, what is your prediction and your series MVP?
I was going to say Olsen, but instead I'll go Marlins sweep, Huascar Brazaban, 3 saves, MVP. This is it. Hey, how many Marlins sweeps do we have this year?
They're only against the Nationals.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, let's see.
That's true, by the way. It's only against the Nationals.
Yeah, damn. That's disappointing.
They've only lost 1 game against the Nationals.
They've got a series win in Houston, though. Maybe that's what we can really be
They also
working
had a
with
series
here.
win against the Padres at home a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, they're really not playing very well, these Marlins.
Thanks,
right.
we know.
I'll say, I was like, oh, we haven't figured that out by now. Marlins, no, hold on, change it. Marlins are winning the series, okay? And you dummies, I hope we get a screenshot on here. Okay,
That's exactly what we do every show.
Of me, the only one picking the Marlins to win the series, not 3-0. They'll
lose on Sunday.
Sweep the Braves. But the MVP will be John Birdie, who will record.
He's hurt.
Great. The MVP will be the MVP. Wait, how many lefties are? See, I don't love
There's
the Riley
3 lefties
against,
on the team: Joey
against,
Wendell,
no, I know, but
Leyland
I'm saying,
Diaz, and JJ Bleday.
No, I know. I was saying I don't love the. That's why I don't love the Riley pick against Cabrera and Pablo and Sandy. But since the Marlins are winning the series, then it's got to be a Peyton Burdick. Is Peyton Burdick going to start?
He's starting today.
All right, great. Peyton Burdick.
Is he?
I started with Peyton Burdick and I end with Peyton Burdick.
Is he not starting today?
No, I think he is.
Not.
I got him confused with Gerard. Gerard Encarnacion is starting today.
Oh man, I probably should have picked someone in the lineup. All right, in that case,
we'll give you the option. You can do it again.
No, I'll go. Is he going to start every game?
Who?
I guess Wendell plays all the time.
Yeah, he plays against lefties.
Oh my God, this lineup is so bad. All right. Well, I guess I should just give it to a pitcher. I'm just going to give it to Edward Cabrera, who will win tomorrow. How about that?
All right.
And they'll be surprised.
Not a bad
There you
one.
go. Marlins 2-1, Edward Cabrera.
Okay. Let me edit that real quick. So there's no confusion.
2-1.
So, I
lose
gotta
the
ask
Cincinnati
you,
game.
As a Mariners farmhand fan, I guess. How were you? I was really big into Edwin Arroyo before he was dealt for Castillo. What were your thoughts on Arroyo? I'm really big on Edwin Arroyo.
Yeah, he's awesome, and boy, do I not care because Luis Castillo's on the Mariners. I mean, it's like I can't. It's just funny because it's like Alex here. Like, look, we all love our prospects. We all can hug our prospects and hold them near and dear to our heart. Like, I get it, right? But especially a team in the Mariners position, I just cannot relate to there was some Yankees tweet floating around earlier this week that was like, actually, I'm glad that they didn't give all that up for Castillo and instead got Montas. I was like, sick, dude. That's lame as hell. Why would you say that? Look, obviously all these trades could end up. Of course, Edward Arroyo could be an all-star and Noelvi Martin. It's like, I don't care right now. Why do we watch this? We want our major league team to win games. And it's like, it's more fun because Luis Castillo's in the Mariners now. So not that it can't hurt at some point, but right now I'm like, yeah, I wish Arroyo the best. And it's not hard because Luis Castillo's amazing. So
Jordan, let me ask you this question. A lot of us here in Fish Stripes, we're young, we're up-and-coming journalists, all of us. We even have someone here, 17-year-old, our own Yuri Perez. A lot of us early 20s. So I wanted to ask you, as someone...
Who's 17?
He's not here on this stream.
He's not here.
Boy, Kevin.
Having huge following, working for Fox, Céspedes, just do you have any advice for us or maybe other baseball writers, journalists on maybe how to improve or where to get even where you're at or even half of where you're at now?
Yes. So obviously, people ask me this, and so I'm very fortunate to do what I do. Jake Vince and I, who started doing Céspedes Barbecue, 10 years ago when we were in high school, it was entirely for fun. It was entirely because we love baseball and we just wanted to share it with each other and, make each other laugh and just do that. Right. And like the whole reason you should do anything in the baseball world and space, and it's changed so much over the last decade. Like, I'm sorry to sound like an old fart or whatever, but like truly it is amazing the degree to which it's how easy it is to just like make a good show or just make something that people can get involved in a way that you clearly have here with Fish Stripes, right? And like, obviously there's just way more tools and opportunities than ever, but what that also means is that there's way more people trying to do it, right? And that's the challenge is to stand out in that sense. And that's why like my advice is, sure, I've like worked hard, but it's a lot of luck. And you just have to make sure you're doing it because you love it and not because you are trying to like get big. Because the best thing, the thing that anyone is always going to relate to, and this is why I've enjoyed, talking about the terrible Marlins for the last 70 minutes, is that you guys care, right? You guys give a shit. You guys like are always thinking about this, are always trying to figure out how in the world is this going to change, right? Like it's just passion, and that's what baseball is, and that's what you can say this about other sports, but I found that it's a sport that just kind of consumes you in a very unique way, and part of that is because there's a billion games and a billion levels to follow, and so there's always something else that you can learn. And so that's the other thing that I would say in terms of advice is just get out there, go to minor league games, go to major league games, and just experience things and be around the game as much as you can. And I know that that's not easy for everybody because of where you are and other kinds of limited, resources and time, and you have school and you have this and you have that. And like, I totally respect and understand that. But as much as you can, just get and talk to people and be around it, and you will enjoy it more and want to learn more. And that's I'm constantly like, yeah, I do it. I'm lucky enough to do it for a living and write about it for Fox. But like when I'm not writing about it for Fox, like I'm like reading about Jake Eater because I care. Like I just want to know more and more and more, right? So to a point, it's probably unhealthy, but as long as it's driving, your passion is driving what you're doing, then that's the most important thing. Because if you're not having fun, then whoever's watching you is not going to be having fun. No. And so that would be the best thing that I can say is always communicate, not from the standpoint of necessarily knowing more than the other person, but just that you care and that you are, wanting to share baseball in some form with other people. That would be my best advice. But, yeah.
Awesome. Before we go, Adam, Isaac, any final questions you want to ask before we wrap this up, before we watch Sandy complete game, no-hitter, perfect game tonight against the Braves?
Oh, man, I was going to ask the advice question, but you took the words out of my mouth. So, Isaac, I'm going to yield to him if he's got anything to ask him.
All right. And with that, I want to thank Jordan again so much for coming on, for talking to us from everything from Jake Eater up to Jose Salas to Sixto Sanchez and to even Mr. Payne Burdick himself. You have to come on again. This was awesome. This is almost a dream come true for me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invite, guys. Promise me this, all right? First of all, we'll check back on the 2024 rotation then. We'll definitely do a pod for that just to see which one of us was the most wrong. And, hey, I don't know. This hasn't been announced yet. I've been asking around. Draft lottery. That's happening at some point this winter.
Yeah.
Marlins. Okay, if they win the lottery, we got to do a whole draft lottery celebration party stream. Okay, I want to be all in on that. I just started today. I just started doing my 2023 draft prep, so I'm not. That's not a joke even. So like this just when you're ready to talk 2023 draft after the lottery, I'm ready to come on and start hyping up some guys.
Awesome. Yeah, we had a whole draft stream during the draft, first 6 pick. We had an amazing reaction with Kumar Rocker going to the Rangers. It was awesome.
Yeah, dude. Draft is that's my stuff right there. So if you ever want to talk about it, I'm down. But seriously, thank you guys for the invite. This was super fun.
Awesome. Well, for Eli, Isaac, Adam, Alex, for myself, Daniel, for Jordan Shusterman of Céspedes Family Barbecue, this has been Fish Stripes Live. No matter what the record is, always go fish.
We got to end it off right. We got to